It's working. Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Check, check. Check, check.
Check, check. Hey, just going to make an announcement to give people a margin of error to show up, you know, because it's rush hour and whatnot. The music is not going to start until 6:45, and we're going to try and orchestrate a list here with my friend Jacob. Come to him if you wish to speak, and we will put you on the list. Just keep in mind that we need to keep it, I don't know, between 3 and 4 minutes because, you know, we all have to share, and a lot of us are verbose and full of charisma and whatnot, and are going to want to ramble on and ramble on. And I totally cherish that, but we have to be respectful and share. So anyway, if you're interested, come talk to Jacob, and he will get you on the list to speak in regards to my father. And like I said, the festivities won't start until 6:45, and then we'll start speaking at 7. And thank you very much for being here. And sign the books inside if you so desire, please. There's some great pictures and some art, some CDs that were up for grabs. They might not be around anymore. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah. Hello. Greetings, people of Oath. Can you hear that, Kenny? All right, that's good. Welcome. And I'm not going to say much because there's going to be much better and more interesting things said very soon. This is my response, literally right when I heard, and that evening. And so it's evolved some since then. Both Chris and I asked Stefan if we could have an hour and a half each, but for the good of humanity, no, it's gonna be what it is. So welcome, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you folks have to say. This is what I'm gonna say.
Dennis Gonzalez, y'all. Come on, that's why we're here. That was actually Gregg Prickett, but man, if you guys have anything in your hands right now, as one of my fellow trumpet player mentors, brother, badass motherfucking dude, worldwide, and in my home city, Dennis Gonzalez, if y'all can raise something up right now, man, come on. To Dennis. He's here listening right now. I know he is. I didn't expect to write a tune for him. I think he actually wrote this tune. We all been thinking about him, and about a week ago, I was just kind of sitting in silence and just chilling, and he hit me on the shoulder and said, "Hey." I go, "Okay." Got my trumpet out of the case and started messing around with some stuff. I didn't have to mess around too long before the notes started flowing, and I said, "Armando, are we writing a tune now?" It was a question mark, and he said, "Yes, we are." I was sad at that time when I started putting this thing together. We started putting this thing together, and it turned into a comfort song for me. And what I got from him was a lullaby, and said everything's cool, and don't finish it until we meet again. This is a tune called "Reaching for DG." He also said, grab whatever you got to make music, because it's all the same shit. So I looked around my house before I left here today. I grabbed that little clicker thing. This is one of my kids' party favors from a birthday party that you guys probably have all seen. 10 for $1. He was also very comical. And he would say, hey, why not? This is one of my wife's fancy napkin rings that you wrap around fancy napkins to put on some fancy-ass tables to invite your fancy-ass friends in the holidays. This is one of my child's ends on a recorder that they had in elementary school.
Come on, go, hey!
And now here's the song that we wrote together.
She told me it was gonna be okay. Keep it on. Thank you. this song will not get to him. He told me that. Okay.
Hello. What's up, y'all? Y'all look beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. Friends, family, former co-workers of my father's, students, artistic types, even people who admired him from afar and knew him merely through knowing about him through me and my brother, you know? We appreciate all of you being here. You know, I got a chance to speak at his funeral yesterday, but I didn't want to come up with my own speech. I just read some of his poems because I didn't know that I would be strong enough to make it through. But I feel like this that I wrote this morning with tears in my eyes is I don't know, you know, we're all self-deprecating, right? So I feel like this is relatively half-assed, but hopefully you'll gather something out of it, okay? So forgive me. But, okay, here we go. My dad was a deeply spiritual man, even religious. But rest assured that all are welcome at this celebration of his life. Because whether or not you are satanic, atheist, Christian, agnostic, Buddhist, Muslim, etc., he saw all these paths as a validated piece of the expansive puzzle that is known as humankind. He taught me to question, and my brother as well, everything. Even his own beliefs, behavior, and authority. Aside from raising me and Aaron on jazz music and classic rock, he introduced us to the darker, more obscure, and interesting side of things because he knew we were desiring of something different and something deeper than what was considered hip among our age group. And he had access to many musical promos through working at KERA 90.1 for so many years. This resulted in Aaron and I being exposed to post-punk, grindcore, industrial, free jazz, noise, and black metal, aside from the solid creative infrastructure that we had already been raised with. This is absolute life-changing stuff. He would more than meet anyone he found interesting halfway in an exchange of knowledge, oftentimes changing people's lives without even knowing it. He taught me how to collage, make flyers for my band shows, document my dreams, wrap sticks with yarn, will my dreams to the wind, cope with heartache, cope with death, and how in all of my emo tear depression to laugh my ass off as often as possible. He was exceedingly talented in so many facets. The ultimate joy was playing in our family trio of 22 years, Yells at Eels. My dad at the front, playing his trumpet, and running circles around us, handing out instruments to the crowd, banging on gongs, and taking the music higher and higher and higher. We were boisterous, obnoxious, spirited, deep, shallow, but most of all, captivating and beautiful. I feel so fortunate to have temporarily been a jazz star with my pops by my side. I can't think of where else to take the speech, but I will miss his voice, his touch, his laugh, and fatherly wit. That being said, I still have all these wonderful people in my immediate family, extended family, and even adopted family, and I love you all so very, very much. Even when I've been ungrateful or not shown it, I love you all. My dad loves you all. And let's have some fun and let out some emotion for this wonderful man. We shall no longer make apologies for the tears that we shed when death dangles at such a short altitude, so shallow, right above our head. I love you, Dad. I don't know who all signed in with Jacob, but I guess we got to figure out who's going to speak next. I'm not sure how that works exactly. But thank you for being here. And stay tuned. Going to have more recollections, more friends coming up here. Thank you.
Thanks for being here tonight. If anybody wants to talk about Dennis, just come on up front. These 3 seats here, just sit right in one of these 3 seats. And one by one, you can come up, spend 3 to 5 minutes or so talking about Dennis, one of our favorite people in the world. Come on down. Make yourself at home. Come right up these steps here. And actually, where's David Marquis? We're going to get David Marquis to start us off. You out there, David? Or Ken Shimamoto? How about Ken? All right.
Hi, I'm Ken Shimamoto from Fort Worth. There's a few of us here. We like coming to Oak Cliff because it's only 2 turns off the highway. And I've known Dennis Gonzalez for about 44 years off and on, about 20 years continuously. And I mean, when I first met him, a friend of mine had a restaurant gig. He was an 8-string guitar player, which was a weird thing back in 1978. And I was driving, I said, okay, I'll take you to the spot. And he said, wait a minute, we got to stop in Oak Cliff and pick up this bass player. So we drove to this house on Clinton Avenue that was full of instruments and art objects. And I'm going, this is an interesting looking place. And that was Dennis, and he was playing bass. I didn't even know he played trumpet back then. But I followed, you know, his evolution in music. You know, he was way ahead of the curve in terms of the do-it-yourself aesthetic. You know, making your own scene, making your own records, doing it all, and kind of springing out of your own head. He didn't apprentice with anybody. He didn't come through the academy. He and Gerard Bendix and people like that, you know, came up here in Dallas, and they were doing it. You know, and then Caravan of Dreams opened, and Dennis, being the outgoing fellow that he was, introduced himself to all these world-class musicians coming through. You know, he made some connections. He had some collaborations. He got known all over the world, in Europe. You know, I mean, he told me just a couple of weeks ago that, you know, in 1983 or 84, Keith Knox from Silkheart Records in Sweden, an English guy who lived in Sweden, had a record label. Dennis had made one record, Stefan, for the label, and Keith Knox sent him a big check and said, okay, you know how to do this, so I want you to get Charles Burkeen and Ahmed Abdullah and get you a quartet, make some records. And they made 4 albums, and people still listen to those records today. But Dennis, just because of his own integrity and his own ability, had the reputation and the trust that somebody who'd never met him before would give him that opportunity. And you know, he made more records, he performed in a lot of different places, and then it kind of dwindled away. He got busy because he was a teacher. You know, he was a full-timer. I mean, he never thought about leaving and going where the press was because he had a life here. He was teaching, he was making a difference for kids in Dallas. He had a family to raise, and he wanted them, you know, to have the life he wanted them to have. But at a certain point, and I mean, I know a lot of people in Fort Worth, like old punk rockers who are now pushing 50. I know there's a couple of them here who also didn't know that Dennis was a musician like I didn't, but they knew that there was this cool couple in Oak Cliff that used to let their kids have punk shows at the house. And they would go over there and do it. And yeah, you know, Dennis and Carol, I mean, it's Aaron and Stefan's parents. They're cool people. You know, people didn't know that they were musicians until maybe much later. They saw Yells and Deals. Wow, you do that too? But and the thing about Dennis was he had humility. His achievements demanded respect, but he did not ask for it. He did not try and get it from people. I mean, what he did, he welcomed people. You know, he and Carol welcomed so many friends into their house and nurtured us with food and made us laugh. But more than anything else, Dennis let other people see how he saw them, and that gave them the ability to take risks and try and create. And there's so many people here, I am one of them, who are the beneficiaries of that. You know, But Dennis didn't demand respect. I've sat at his table and listened to him tell a story about a tour in days gone by. You know, someplace in Eastern Europe, it might have been, I don't know, Slovenia, but he said, I wanted to go on stage and run out there and be really exciting. And so I ran out on stage, and the smoke in the room from the cigarettes was so thick that I started choking and coughing every time I tried to play my trumpet, and I tried again, and the story went on. But the thing that stuck with me was, as accomplished and as well known as he was also sure enough of himself to make himself sound ridiculous and to take joy in that. You know, and not that very long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Jeff Lyles and I went with Dennis to see King Crimson play in Fair Park. And, you know, it had been a long time since I went to a show like that. I mean, not as long as it's been the last 2 years, but, you know, I told them while we were waiting in line, you know, the last time I came to a show like this, the two big concerns, getting the buzz and keeping the buzz. Now they are, how far do I have to walk to the car, and where are the bathrooms? But outside the venue after the show, we're all standing there having the usual post-gig post-mortem, and it was like the comments section on Facebook, live in person. Everyone had a criticism to offer about this or that band member or this or that song and the way this was done, the way this wasn't done. And Dennis, alone out of all of us, just looked around and said, why do you want to compare what was on stage with something that happened in the past? Why can't you just enjoy what they're giving you? And that was Dennis, and that was something a lot of us, myself included, you know, needed to hear. He was the kind of person, for various reasons, you know, maybe his spirituality, maybe just the inner authority that he carried. But when he was on the set, people didn't feel as entitled to treat each other badly. We wanted to be better so that we could be worthy of him. You know, and I'm a writer. I write a lot about Dennis. This last week I've written a lot about Dennis because that's how I process loss and grief and things like that. But, you know, if you know writers, you know all of their stories. But also, you know, old folks, people of a certain age, as any young person will tell you, tell the same stories again and again and again. But it's important that we all hold on to our stories of Dennis and we tell them again and again and again, because in doing that, the stories become lore. And if you keep doing that, the lore becomes legend. And if you keep doing that long enough, then that is as close as a living soul ever gets to having immortality. And Dennis, to me, is immortal. I love you, brother. And I love all of you for being here. Thank you very much.
He was tall and I'm so short. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Vicki Meek, and I've known Dennis for 4 decades. I'm probably the first person in Dallas to have shown his artwork. I mean, everybody's talking about him as a musician, and he was an amazing magician. He was a magician, actually. He actually was. Musician, magician. But he was a fabulous artist as well. And when I ran the Visual Arts Center, I were talking about art, because he knew I was an artist as well, and someone who wasn't known as an artist in this town because I had my art career elsewhere. And he started saying, you know, well, Vicki, I do artwork too. And I was like, really? I said, well, can I see it? He said, sure, you can see it. And when I saw the work, I, of course, was blown away. And I was like, you got to have a show. You know, plain and simple, you got to have a show. So we showed the work, and people loved it. And I think that from that moment on, Dennis realized that he could do it all. I mean, he could do the music, he could do the art. There was no reason to not do one or the other. And then when I began to work at the South Dallas Cultural Center, we did a couple of projects together. I was very much one of the people who, in the presenter community, wanted to make sure that the kind of music that Dennis was doing was something that our community was exposed to, the African American community was exposed to, because a lot of people had ideas about what jazz was and what free jazz was, and they didn't necessarily know what it was. And I enjoyed bringing Dennis onto the scene because he was the best at it. You know, I mean, we didn't have to go outside of Dallas to find that person who did that kind of music at a very high level. Dennis was that person. So we did several projects like that, and of course I was always excited about what his sons were doing, because it's like, that's the legacy right there. Stefan and Aaron are the legacy. And as a friend, Dennis was the best. You know, I could call him. Okay, now I got to get it together. I could call on him at any time that I needed him to do something, and he was there. He was always there. So, like the guy said before me, I love you, Dennis. I will always love you, and feel so blessed to have had you in my life for 4 decades. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Scott Gonzalez. I am Dennis's younger brother. There are 3 siblings here, Sylvia Villarreal, Steve Gonzalez, and I think you met both of them in and out, but yesterday, if you all were at the service, you learned some stories. I actually met my brother Dennis in 3rd grade. Well, that was you. That was him. So we've always had this joking mannerisms, and one of the things that you all need to know is that the love of language that my brother Dennis had, Sid, as we called him, came from my father, who was astoundingly bilingual. He spoke really, really well in Spanish and in English, and then he always joked and said things under the radar that would catch people by surprise. And they weren't very nice sometimes, but they were funny as hell. And so that's where I think my brother Dennis gets his, got his whole idea of playing with language. We always played with language. My mom, on the other hand, and he loved music, by the way, that was true. My mom was also a musician, but she was also one who exposed us a lot to art. Whenever we traveled, she'd take us to museums. In the summertime, we would travel all over the United States working. My parents worked with migrant farm workers and education, and they would set up schools and they would set up health clinics, etc. In fact, the reason Dennis Sid ended up at Arkansas State is that my dad often would speak at colleges and universities throughout the Midwest about the needs for migrant farm workers' children. And we got to go to some magnificent and wonderful places. And anyway, he was astounding. But he loved music, and we always listened to music. In fact, one of his favorite jokes was he would talk about Kenny Rogers and the Fifth Dimension. He would just mix these things up all the time, and he knew exactly what he was doing, but we'd correct him, you know. My mom, of course, played the piano and conducted the church youth choir and women's choir, kids choir. Everything she could direct and control, trust me, she took off after it. But she also did art, and so he got that from him. And he was one who was able to mix all those things. I've often been compared to a jack of all trades, a master of none, and I always looked at my brother as the jack of all trades and master of all. He was just astounding. It was always so much fun to be around him. We had a chance to travel one time. After my father took his life in 1980, I got a Curiel pass and headed over the seas, and then Dennis decided he wanted to go to Ljubljana. In fact, he had just started this company called DAGNM, Dallas Avant-Garde and Neo-Impressionistic Musicians, and we had gotten in contact with Radio Student in Ljubljana. So I had traveled all over Northern Europe, stopping. I'd been there about 6 weeks, and I met him at the airport in Nice, and he was zoned out because it was such a long flight back then. And so we get in the car, and we're driving along. Look, I used to have hair like him. I don't know if you saw. I mean, I had a shitload of hair. It was nice. And I had a big beard. I had my hiking boots on. I had my backpack. I was kicking major ass. It was a lot of fun. So I picked him up, and we're driving along, and he's kind of out of it. And he's fluent in French, and I'm blessed to have picked up that propensity for languages as well. So I spoke French. That was my minor. And he couldn't really communicate, so we were getting along really well. I would communicate for him and translate. And he goes, "I never knew." And I said, "It's okay. We just, we're lucky that way." One thing you don't know about him is his mind was so active all the time that he would not shut up at nighttime. He was a speaker. And I'm telling you, I'm not just like, quoting Robert Burns or anything like that. He was talking to people, well, who don't exist, but in real languages. He was absolutely amazing. Secondly, he was a sleepwalker. And that's a sign, I think, of this overwhelmingly active mind. We're in a little town in Sanremo, Italy, along the Autostrada there. And it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and horns are honking and stuff, and this guy is next to me in another bed. He jumps up, starts going right to the window, and I'm a light sleeper, and I'd been in Europe, so I was accustomed to the time change. I get up and catch him, and he starts yelling at something in Italian to those guys out there, and I'm just like, and he's asleep the whole time. So I just wanted to share something about that creative mind of his. The more fun that we had, though, is there were two of us, and we were not undergrown by any means. We were in a car about the size of that amp. Fiat Panda. Really, it's tiny. And we're both like, And we get pulled over, and it's a lot of laughs now. But anyway, so I've been teaching for a long time. And there's a poem I wanted to share with you all. I wrote to the author just the other day, a writer named Mark Cox. And I think this is perfect because I need to be honest with you all. This death shit is overblown. It's hard shit. But this is really good, and I think if every time you hear the title and it says, "Things My Grandfather Must Have Said," I think this is actually what Sid would have said. Mark Cox, "Things My Grandfather Must Have Said." I want to die in the wintertime, make the ground regret it, make the backhoe sweat. January, Blue Monday. After the holiday weekend, I want it to be hard on everybody. I want everybody to have a headache and the traffic to be impossible. Back it up for miles, Jesus. I want steam under the hood, bad directions, cousins lost, babies crying in sleet. I want a wind so heavy the umbrellas howl. And give me some birds, pigeons even, anything circling for at least half an hour, and plastic tulips and a preacher who stutters, before every word of Psalm 22. I want to remind them how bad things are. Spell my name wrong on the stone. Import earthworms as fat as Aunt Katie's arms and put them under the folding chairs. And I want a glass coffin. I want to be wearing the state of Missouri string tie that nobody liked. God, I hope the straps break when I fall in with a thud. I hope the shovel slips out of my son's hands. I want them to remember I don't feel anything. I want the food served straight from my garden. I want the head of the table sent. I want everyone to get a pennant that says, Sid was the greatest, and a complete record of my mortgage payments. I want to keep receiving mail for 13 years and all the bills addressed to me, old friends calling every other month to wonder how I am. Then I want an earthquake, a rising water table, the painful exhumation of my remains. I want to do it all over again. I want to die the day before something truly important happens and have my granddaughter say, what would he have thought of that? I want you all to know how much I love you.
Hello, my name is Gerard Bendix. Some of you might have some of the early Dagnum recordings on vinyl. Once again, Dagnum is an association that he decided to form in the very early days, back when men were men and sheep were nervous. He called it Dagnum, the Dallas Association of Avant-Garde and Neo-Impressionist Musicians. And one day when I told him, I don't consider myself or this music avant-garde, he said, it's all right. As long as other people think that we think that, it's fine with me. And he's right. Yeah, avant-garde is whatever you don't like, right? You want to put down, including country or Bulgarian music for that matter. Some of you who might have some of those early recordings might have noticed that there's a drummer on one of those recordings with a very strange name of Burke Resendog. That was just Dennis and I having fun with my name, and we thought, what the hell, let's screw with them. I think my name is spelled correctly on some of the other ones, I'm not sure. A Day for Memories, when I decided to sign up to do what I'm doing right now, I only had one that I was going to say, and listening to everybody else, others came back. Yeah, we went to Ljubljana, Slovenia one year. That was a lot of fun. I changed Aaron's diapers one time when Carol and Dennis were, well, they weren't there to do it, so I was. I can't recall if they were gone for a weekend or an hour. But Dennis asked, well, how was it, man? Did he shit in his pants? I said, yeah. I said, you know what to do? I said, yeah, I raised 3 little brothers, and I got a lot of cousins. He said, it was all right? I said, yeah, it wasn't a happy smell. And he thought that was very funny, and I thought of that little story when Scott was talking about his love of languages, of which we both did share. We both started off in life with Spanish and English. And then, well, I also had French, and he was a French teacher, and I spoke Italian, and he spoke enough Italian to make me laugh, so that was always fun. There's other things I could probably remember when I'm on the way home, so it doesn't matter. But I will offer a vocal little tune for you. Something he probably would have enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, just pretend you do. I'm going to enjoy myself. Here goes. If you want to clap along, feel free. If you don't want to clap along, don't feel free. Batsikum, kutum patat kutum, spatsikum, sukutum batum, kutum patat kutum, spatsikum, sukupatsikum, patatsikum, spatsikum, sukutum bakum, kutum patat kutum, spatsikum, pap.
All right, I won't say that this isn't hard, but except I just did. There's so much stuff to say about Dennis, but I'll try to keep it brief. I'll tell the story about how I met the Gonzalez's really quick, and I was just a Yankee punk coming down from Chicago, teenager, and because my dad got a job at SMU seminary and whatnot, and we had a host family connected to it, and I met this guy named Jeremy, Jeremy Proctor Smith. He's here. Anyway, we connected instantly because we both liked The Residents, and he's like, we moved to Edgefield. He's like, you got to meet one of my like good friends. Like, he happens to live behind you, and it's his birthday. His birthday's on November 27th. Mine is on the, 26th. Mine's on the 27th. I always get confused in my mind. So we go over there, and all these people are there, and Carol, it's like, oh, it's your birthday too, basically, so it's also your birthday. And they became such great hosts, and instantly Aaron and I kind of just became brothers, and Stefan became my other sibling. And I got to know Dennis going over to the house, playing in bands with both Stefan and Aaron, and Dennis was always like this shaman that lived behind me that kept like the neighborhood safe somehow, and kept things safe through his music, and he was this teacher full of wisdom that opened my mind beyond like punk rock. And, you know, really the rest is history. I mean, I'm going to keep this brief because there really is too many stories, and I'm sure we all have too many stories. So Dennis is like been a teacher. He made me think out of the box. Like, art school didn't work for me because Dennis taught me how to think out of the box, and I wouldn't be where I am today and thinking what I'm thinking about art and music and all that without him, and it's going to be there forever for me. So that's all I can say right now without crying. So thank you.
My name is Michael T. A. Thompson. I've known Dennis for a long time, as a lot of people here. I have a lot to say, actually, but I'm giving myself 1 minute to do it. 1 minute. I will say everything I need to say, but I need a little bit of help. As I do this, this will be a little bit different, but this is something that Dennis and I, we talk about a lot, and we talk in this way a lot. So I would like everyone to just close your eyes for a second. Just close your eyes till I say you can open your eyes. Just close your eyes. And I will say everything I need to say in 1 minute, but you have to keep your eyes closed. Okay, thank you. That is who Dennis was. You can't put a label on it. You can't put some kind of limitation on it. He was just totally expansive. And it was endless. There was no boundary to it. And we would talk at times. And sometimes we never really talked about music. It's kind of strange. We never really talked about music, concepts, and stuff. Where every time we would go in the studio, he would wait right until the downbeat. So I go, "What do you want?" "Yeah, yeah, you feel it." And then, ready, boom, that's it. He would take everyone into consideration. I mean, everyone. We did a session once where we had some really great players on there, which I will not call names. We had some really great players, but there's one person that's super well known. And Dennis said, "Hey, TA, could you come on, man?" And I said, "Okay, what's up?" He goes, "Do you hear that?" He was talking about this person, and I said, "Yeah." He said, could you fix that when we start to play?" I go, "Yeah, I could do that." And he never said anything to that person. First of all, out of respect, you're not going to do that. This is someone that everyone knows, that's been around for a long time. He was just in a different space, but Dennis would never say, "No, that's not what I want. That's not it. Don't do that." I've never heard him talk like that. So instead of doing that, he just came to me. "Can you fix that?" I knew what he meant. And once the downbeat hit, I created a sound that made that other person's sound like he was playing with us. And that just goes to show, Dennis, he always sees you where you are. And if you really know who he is, he has actually, Aaron just hugged me, and he did this to me. I go, "Ooh, that's the touch. That's Dennis's touch." Yeah, he just hugged me and he did that. And that's what he does to everyone. That's why everyone feels him. He just, without imposing himself, he just knows what to say. He sees you right away. And he allows you to be you as he would lift you up. The one thing I was a little confused about that I've been learning since I've been here is I really didn't know how sick he was. That surprised me because we were talking about, he and I doing some gigs here in the city, coming from New York, doing some gigs in the city, but I really didn't know how ill he was because he would always put that to the side because the art and to expand consciously was more important than just being ill, just not feeling well. His drive was to make people feel well, but within their own understanding of who they are. This was really important. So when we met, I heard of Dennis, but never really made contact or anything. But it was really strange how we met, and it was just like instant magic. He came to New York, on a trumpet festival, and he had someone else in mind. Some of you know the story. And I played just before, and then he asked Roy Campbell Jr., if you know who he is. He said, "Hey, Roy, you think TA would play? Because so-and-so isn't here yet." And he went to record this session to actually have a record release on this session. So, and he came to me, he said, "Mr. TA," I go, "No, you don't have to do that." You don't have to do that. He said, "Would you play because so-and-so isn't here yet?" I said, "Sure." I said, what would you like me to do?" He goes, "Oh, you'll know when we get there." I go, "Okay." Because I'm a downbeat person. Nothing happens until it happens. this is how I live. When it's time to do it, I will do it exactly when it's supposed to happen. So we played, and that's one of my, aside from Idlewild, that's one of my favorite recordings, because it was, we had no sense of what it was. We had all these great players on it, and we did it. We just, because that something happened to his machine, we only had 35 minutes. 35 minutes, and he needed more. So what did he do? He called me up and said, hey, could you go in the studio and record, like, you know, a percussion track just by yourself? And I'm going to be in New York a few days later, and then you and I could play together. And this is what he does. He's a constant creator. He can't help himself. He is a constant creator, and if you really want to learn how to express yourself, just look at his life work. If you really want to learn how to express yourself, look at his life work. That will tell you everything. Thank you.
Hey, y'all. I'm coming up here with kind of an incomplete thought in my head, but I met Dennis way later in his life, and most of our time together was spent around the dinner table with Stefan and Aaron and Carol and Izzy. And I just wanted to express to all of y'all how much I learned from him in such a short period of time, just about love and acceptance of everyone. I've always strived to be that way, but I didn't have many examples like that in my life, but I did get that from both Dennis and Carol, and of course from Stefan and Aaron as well. And I will never forget what I learned from all of them.
Hi. I've been sitting here thinking about where I was going to start. I don't know where to start exactly, but I guess just to say, clearly Dennis and the Gonzalez family are, they're the type of people that serve as markers in a community, in an artistic community, especially, you know, when you meet someone and you find out that you have this mutual connection. Sometimes you find out a mutual connection and you're like, oh. But Dennis and the Gonzalez family was the opposite, right? You find out when you meet someone and you have this mutual connection and it's Dennis Gonzalez, and it's somebody who's working with Dennis in some way, you realize, oh, this is someone I want to know, and maybe someone I want to work with. I moved to Dallas in 2005 and started going to punk and metal shows, and the first time I met Dennis and Carol, it was in their kitchen at a show. Somebody had invited me to a show in South Oak Cliff, and right as I arrived, I think I asked something about like smoking inside, and they were like, oh, no, you know, the parents live here, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's one of those type of shows. Anybody who's ever been to a punk and metal show where the parents were hosting it, it's usually a pretty interesting household, but rarely as productive and safe as the Gonzalez household felt. And so that in and of itself was a pretty remarkable experience, to be in an environment where I'm listening to this music and this subculture that meant so much to me, but also being able to feel safe in the sense that it was a home. And in 2008, 2009, a group of friends and I decided to start this punk rock collective. And not only were we going to start a collective, we were going to build a building. We were going to restore a 150-year-old building that had practically burned down, and we were going to do it ourselves, and we did. And even though that was some of the hardest work I've ever done in my life, it turns out the hard part was organizing people to work inside that building afterwards. Turns out that was the really hard part. And the first time I ever had a real in-depth conversation with Dennis was in the gated-in rock area behind the building. We had just finished a long work day, and I was frustrated. I tended to play the kind of mom role of this, I'm 24, single mom, and I'm trying to be mom to 8 dozen wild punk metal kids who have no stability in their lives, and I'm trying to organize them to do productive stuff in the community. I wasn't very popular at that time in the group, and I was struggling with that at the moment, and I didn't feel like I had a place anymore. I felt like I had worked really hard to create something, and now musicians and artists had this place, and I didn't feel like I had a role anymore. And I was really struggling with that. And I wish I could remember the exact words that Dennis gave me. I can't. But I know that we talked for a really long time, and I walked away from that conversation knowing that I had a purpose, that every community needs someone who can organize, and every community needs somebody who can do the things no one else wants to do when it comes to making sure there's a safe space. And that goes back to how I met Dennis and Curiel and the Gonzalez family in this safe space where community and art was number one. And I'll end with this. Today is mine and my partner's wedding anniversary, and well, it's not exactly how I might have envisioned us spending it. It seems meant to be. Today, I was sitting in the kitchen thinking about just, what we were going to do tonight, and thinking about Dennis, and I remembered when I met my partner, Dave, we had been dating for a little while, and I really liked him, but I wasn't quite sure if it was right. I had all these doubts and new relationship, and you're starting to kind of think this might be the one. Turns out it was. Clearly. But I went to his house. It was like the second time I'd ever gone to his house, and he'd already impressed me with this ridiculous vinyl collection, right? And then he says, I started a record label. It's just this kind of, little thing I do. And he goes, this is one of the first pressings I did. And he goes, do you ever heard of them? And he pulls out a Yells at Eels record. And there's Dennis and Stefan and Aaron, and I was like, yeah. I know them. You produced you put out the Yells at Eels record? And he was like, yeah. And it was in that moment, I knew that this person was special. I knew that if Dennis Gonzalez trusted this person enough to produce an album that he made with his sons that I knew he loved that much, I knew this guy had to be pretty decent. And so that's my story of Dennis, and I love him, and I love Curiel, and I love the Gonzalez family so much, and I'm a better person for having known your dad, and for getting to know you all, who are surely the product of his love. So that's it.
Hello, my name is Eloy Martinez. I know Dennis as Gons, so I'll be calling him Gons. I met Gons back in '85, I believe. I was in middle school at Spence Middle School. I was in the band, in the high school band, and he was teaching mariachi. I never joined the mariachi, but I just thought, man, that guy is so cool. And I got to know him better in high school. I went to North Dallas High School, 87 to 92. Yes, it took me 5 years to graduate. And I developed a relationship with him through my friends Jesse, Yogi, and Louie, and
all the people that were in the mariachi. We were the metalhead kids from the northeast side, you know, little hood rat kids. But Gonz opened our world. He pretty much made us fearless with our music. We made a band, and he would always say, don't be scared. Play what you want, play what you feel, play what you love. That's what he would tell me. But what Gonz was to us over at the northeast side, a bunch of little hood rats, was he opened our world. He took the mariachi to play for the Queen of Elizabeth. You know, we were a bunch of northeast siders playing for Queen Elizabeth. You know, it was awesome. He opened our world and taught us that there was more than what we knew. And I'm always going to appreciate that from the Gonz. You know, he always had a lot of love for us. And I'm 49 years old right now, and I've always thought about Gonz, and I love him a lot. You know, I thank God that we were blessed to meet him. You know, we had him and Mr. Jackson. They were our music teachers, and I just wanted to express that, you know, that side of him. You know, we were a bunch of kids that nobody else would ever think of, but Gonz did, and Gonz opened our world. That's about all I got to say. Love you, Gonz.
I'd like to think that was Sid giving everybody a round of applause. So, being here, I've heard a lot of stories about how people have been influenced by a person I know as Sid for years and years, and I only met him in November, which is surreal to me because, you know, I know quite a few of you. I've met Stefan at a number of shows. I met Aaron at a Facebook group dedicated to people eating a lot of good food. Shout out Bellas. But I'd only met him in November. And, you know, I met him at my very first family function with Anna's family after we decided to, you know, take it serious. Which, you know, it had been trending in that direction for a while. We were like, okay, it's time. And, you know, I had known of Sid as this really interesting, cool person, and, you know, I got to meet him, and I didn't realize who he was at the time. You know, I just knew of him from my partner saying, you know, like, oh, he's so cool, he's so interesting, look at the art that's in my apartment, it's from him. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. So, you know, I go to this thing, I meet Sid, and, you know, I'm like, all right, this is cool, he's cool. And then I get a message from my buddy Imran. And he's like, I don't mean to pry, but do you know the Gonzalezes? I'm like, no, it wasn't, you know the Gonzalezes. He's like, are you related to the Gonzalezes? I'm like, not quite. I'm dating Sid's niece, though. So it's cool. So, you know, of course, throughout the following few months, you know, every time I had a family function, I got to know Sid a little more and a little more and a little more. And then I got to see him at the Grackle in Fort Worth with where he did an art show and played with Ataraxia Trio +2, and also was able to exhibit the art that he made with his granddaughter Issy. And he was just so happy. Like, I knew he'd been sick for a while, but you wouldn't be able to tell because he was just totally in his element there. And, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, we're going to get to know each other. It's going to be great. And then, you know, in March, Anna was at my apartment, and I was watching wrestling, you know, thinking nothing of it. And then she gets the call saying that this horrible, horrible event happened. And, you know, we dropped everything we were doing to obviously be there to be with Sid's sister, Sylvia, my partner's mom. And, you know, we did what we could on our end to help make the funeral a success and, you know, help me get to know him more. because, you know, I'm now exposed to his growing up, his art, more of his music, and, you know, it's really hit me that even if I got to meet him through all those various ways that it could have happened, it would never have been enough time. Thank you.
My name is Barsamian, and I'm an artist in Dallas. And I'm actually quite envious of all of you because you've had time with Dennis in a way that he and I never really had a chance to share. Reason being that our careers went in ways that kept us apart more than they kept us together. The times I met him was at D-Art and during his shows and everything. And I have to say that I think there's a thing that happens where there's a spirit exchange. And one of the things that happened was that Dennis and I, just like that, had opportunity to briefly talk. And in that time, I reached over and grabbed his hand, and he grabbed my hand, and I knew that something was happening, but I wasn't quite sure. And so it was wonderful just from that point of view, and we followed each other over the years, and we've talked and like that. But about, I believe it was 5 months ago, he had a print that he had done. And he had it on Facebook, I believe, or one of those things, and he was asking for people to purchase them. And I looked at it and I said, you know, he knew that I really love wrestling, and especially the Mexican form of wrestling. And I said to my wife, I need to get this print. And she said, well, how much is it? I said, too little for one thing. So I wrote him a note and said that I wanted to purchase the print. And he said, well, that's great. I really want you to have it. He says, but I can't pay you that money. And he said, why? Because it's not enough. So she said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm just going to write him a check and tell him, Dennis, you really deserve this and more, because your work is so good, and you've never really realized a lot of the greatness of the work through its acceptance in the commercial world, and you deserve it. And he wrote me back and he said, I knew you'd understand. Thank you.
So my name is Pedro Moreno, or PG Moreno. I came from Austin, and I didn't know Dennis as deeply and as well as many of the people here, but he had a very profound effect on me, personally, professionally, and just just as a human being, he really made an impact on me. So I felt I needed to share. I didn't even really think about what I wanted to say, but Dennis improvised every day of his life, and I may not be able to improvise as beautifully as him and sing and soar like he did, but hopefully I can convey how much he meant to me. So I moved to Austin. I'm from Austin, Texas, and I moved there from Houston in the early '90s. And just as I started getting into avant-garde jazz, free jazz, improvisation, started just ignoring and not listening to punk rock anymore, and moving on to jazz. And when I moved to Austin, I just wanted to soak up as much as I could. So I went to see Tina Marsh and the Creative Opportunity Orchestra, and Alex Koch, and all the great Austin creative music folks. And they told me all about the various folks in Texas, and Dennis's name came up. And later in a record store, I was looking around and I saw this this record with all these like English heavyweight free jazz guys and Dennis Gonzalez. I just, wow, that's the guy. And I just started making all these connections and hearing his music. And later I started getting involved in presenting improvised music in Austin, Texas with my organization, Epistrophe Arts. And of course I wanted to know all about regional history and what was going on. And Dennis's name always came up, and Dagnum Records and all the amazing things that he did here and bringing all these great artists to Texas. And it just became such an inspiration. Like, in Texas, people from New York or from San Francisco or wherever tell me, you live in Texas, what the hell goes on there? Nothing, they don't even know about the amazing things that are happening here. But Dennis, was there, doing it all, bringing Max Roach, for Christ's sakes, all this amazing stuff here in Dallas and to Texas. Anyway, just years later, I had the opportunity to present him a couple of times. One time, I was able to curate a small group, and we got Alvin Fielder and Dennis and Alex Koch and Dave Dove from Houston, who couldn't make it here tonight, but also, big love from Dave to everyone here and to Dennis. And so got to meet with Dennis. And then later I presented him when our good colleague Ingebrigt Hokkerflaten, another mutual friend with Dennis who wishes he could be here, but he's in Norway right now. So I had the opportunity to present him in a duo with Ingebrigt in a small art gallery. And he drove down from Dallas in his car, and we met for lunch. And some other folks were supposed to meet us, but it couldn't make it, so it's just me and Dennis. And I feel so fortunate that I got to just sit there for an hour and enjoy a lunch with Dennis. And he, another thing, he introduced me to someone a mutual friend or someone and he was telling his friend about me. And I thought, wow, that's so nice. I can't believe, he understood. He knew all the unsung, the hard work, just why we do this, why we bring creative music, why we want to build an audience for this music. And it meant so much to me to hear his words, reflecting, and made me feel so wonderful. And then just having lunch with him, hearing just crazy stories about teaching school and all the crazy stuff with the administration here with the school district and various things, the mariachi program, and just is a Renaissance man. I was in the presence of an amazing creative powerhouse that was the most humble and just the kindest, sweetest person. And I think really the most important thing that I got from him is, I was a young father at the time, and he was telling me about his sons, who I also knew. I can't remember if I knew them before Dennis, but it doesn't matter. He was telling you about just his relationship with his kids and touring. I think they were touring Poland, and he was saying that Aaron and Stefan were just picking on each other and just fighting the whole time of the tour. And Dennis told them, "You guys need to knock this out, or you're going to have to be L's at Ills, or I'm going to have to leave this tour." And anyway, it was just amazing. But what. As I'm trying to, right now, I'm always trying to get my kid interested in music, and I don't know how Dennis did it, man. I don't know how he did it. My kid's always rolling his eyes whatever I play. So I wish I would have studied a little more on how he managed to get his kids into all that creative music. But just the amazing love that he had for his family, his community, and the worldwide community of artists. Right now I'm having sort of a crisis trying to figure out what's going, for promoting music, this new, what do we need to do? I need to keep thinking of Dennis and his wonderful inspiration, and just his creativity is this, just allow creativity to flow. And I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart. And I want to thank his beautiful family and his wonderful, wonderful children who I love, the most amazing creative people. Thank you very much, and anyway, thank you.
Hi, my name is Ana Villarreal. My uncle was Sid, aka Dennis, as a lot of you knew him. When I was thinking of things to say at this event, one thing just kept coming to me, and it was a song that I got to hear in the days that I and my partner, who you heard from earlier, were compiling lots and lots of photos for the slideshow that if you came to the funeral yesterday, you were able to see. It was really hard for me to look at those photos and not be sad. And this song gave me a lot of comfort in that time. And I want to read it to you because I'm not so much of a singer. I'm more of a pianist, but I want to read it to you now. The song is called Rises the Moon by Liana Flores. Days seem sometimes as if they'll never end. Sun digs its heels in to haunt you. But after sunlit days, one thing stays the same. Rises the moon. Days fade into a watercolor blur. Memories swim and haunt you. But look into the lake, shimmering like smoke. Rises the moon. Oh, close your weary eyes. I promise you that soon the autumn comes to dark and fading summer skies. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Days pull you down just like a sinking ship. Floating is getting harder. But tread the water, child, and know that meanwhile rises the moon. Days pull you up just like a daffodil, uprooted from its garden. They'll tell you what you owe, but know even so, rises the moon. You'll be visited by sleep. I promise you that soon the autumn comes to steal away each dream you keep. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Thank you.
Howdy. My name is Marcos.
I'm Dominique.
And around 2011 or so, La Rondalla was formed in the Oak Cliff Cultural Center. It was definitely an after-school program. An after-school program that my mom, I don't want to say forced me, but she kind of did. And before then, I was more of, an activity that I didn't really know what to do after school. I mean, I went to Sunset High School down the street, and she just really didn't want me to fall into any bad hands or do anything like drugs and whatnot. And so she sent me there, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I got to go to this program. And it was an amazing program, just to let you know. And the very last class I remember was La Rondalla, where I met, obviously, Mr. Gonzalez, and I met Kenny, Gregg, Aaron, Stefan, and Mrs. Gonzalez, of course. And it was always like, it was eye-opening. I used to play guitar before then, and I hated it. Again, my mom didn't force me, but she kind of did to learn. And then I went to this La Rondalla class, and he made me fall in love with music. He made me fall in love with the reason why guitar is such a beautiful instrument, and not only him, but all these beautiful instructors that I had by my side. And he pretty much grabbed us by the hand and took us not around the world, but around the country for sure. He brought so much opportunity to me, to my teammates. I got my other teammates back here, Tony and Matthew, Lily, and I don't know if y'all want to join us and just say something, but you kind of have to come up here, part of La Rondalla.
Yeah. I knew him outside of Rondalla too. Dennis Gonzalez was a coworker of my parents at Spence. So, let me speak up. He'd known our family since before I was born, and came over to visit when both my sister and I were born, and we'd always go over to his house. And one of my earliest memories is me walking in there with my dad when he'd come fix his computer and everything, and I'd be like, it's like a museum in here. And it was. And Mr. Gonzalez was one of those very accepting souls that really saw you for who you were. Without him, we wouldn't have had a lot of the opportunities we did. We got to play really cool venues, and similar to Marcos, my sister was part of it first. Rondalla, she plays guitar. She couldn't be here today. She's in Baltimore. But I had briefly played bass in middle school, and I didn't really like it that much. And then I joined Rondalla, and Aaron was my bass teacher, badass bass teacher, and Stefan was my percussion teacher. Some badass people, just a whole family of incredible musicians, and he was just a beautiful person, and I feel so blessed and lucky to have gotten to know him.
Well, hi, I'm Tony. I am one of Dennis's students from La Rondalla. Don't know much to say other than how much he has impacted my life, even though, yeah, I started as a student from his. My musical journey started with him. I had amazing instructors all around, and yeah, even though it was just an after-school program, it has had a huge impact on my life. He was a huge inspiration for just all of us, honestly. We're all, one way or another, we're all students of his, and we honestly cannot be here without him. One way or another, the program has brought us closer and gave us opportunities that we can never imagine, and we have no one else to thank but him. And have no one else to thank but, the Gonzalez family. Thank you guys, honestly, and, I thank him so much, and, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Eddie, and I'm also a student, former student of the Gonzalez. I studied under Kenny, and a little bit of Gregg, and a little bit of Dennis, and a little bit of everyone else that was there too. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Dennis really brought people together. I didn't get to talk to him personally too much, but what I did got to see was that being around other people is part of what makes us all human, right? And when someone organizes something that brings people together, it kind of works for the greater good. And regardless of how much you did or didn't know Dennis, that's a good thing. And nowadays, we need a lot of good things, and here are 6 good things because of Dennis. So, thanks.
Hello. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Vasquez, and I was also part of the La Rondalla program, but I was also a student of his at Alex W. Spence. For me, I had a very personal relationship with Mr. Gonzalez. I felt like as if I was a son from him. For those of you who don't know, my family, we don't have a lot of money. We lost our house. And my mom was a single parent trying to raise me and my younger brother. And so he really helped support not only me in my upbringing as seeming as a father figure, because I had no one, but I would say that he's the first person to invest in me. And I say that because I come from a family that, I love my family, but when it comes, push comes to shove, he's the first person that actually invested in me. And him and his wife, Curiel, bought me my first ever laptop right when I graduated high school. I never had anything, of that significant value. And I would just like to say that it was worth the investment. I'm now graduated college, did my master's and everything else. And I really wish, the only regret I have was keeping more up with him once I got into college. I'm not trying to make it an excuse or anything. But I really wish that once I'm finishing up this semester, but that I was actually able to, give him a hug, one more time, and to really say, thank you, because truthfully, he was the first individual to actually mentor me and to guide me in the position I'm in right now. And I owe my life to him, so thank you.
Hello, my name is Lillian. I didn't come in with these guys. A lot of them know Mr. Gonzalez because of the musical impact that he had in their life. I came in right when La Rondalla was starting. And Mr. Gonzalez, he saw me and he noticed I wasn't as talented as them, but I wanted to be a part of La Rondalla and everything. And I went up to him one day and I was like, hey, you don't have, like, there's kids like me that we want to be a part of it, but we're not, like, musically inclined. Like, what about a volunteer program? And I was 17 years old and he didn't say no to me. He was like, yeah, let's do it. You're going to be in charge. Bring in people. I believe in you. And that's the first time someone had done that to me and, like, just kind of been like, let me build my place and, like, let me make something inside of something that already existed. And that had such an impact in my life, like, because of that and because of him giving me that opportunity and not questioning me. I'm able to, like, stand in a space and just kind of be like, this is something that's missing, or, like, just have a voice. And I didn't, like, it's so weird that something that small and having someone believe in you in that moment has had such an impact in my life. And because of that, I realized the importance of nonprofits. I realized the importance of, like, giving back to the community in whatever way you can. And I currently work at a nonprofit. Like, my life has gone that direction. And honestly, that is because of Mr. Gonzalez. And that's something that I value so much. And again, we've all been impacted by him in many different ways. And I think it's some of the things that he probably, like, he's touched so many people in ways that he probably doesn't even know. And I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry, but he's an amazing human being, and I'm so grateful to have had him in my life. And yeah. Thank you.
Just want to say one last thing. Mr. Gonzalez and the Gonzalez family, I love you. And I loved him. And as we used to joke around, I love you, man. No homo, though. Thank you. That was our joke.
All right. So, am I the only one projecting here tonight? I wonder. Sorry, tough love. My bad. You can finally hear someone. I don't know what everyone wants to say, but from the bottom of the Gonzalez family's heart, we really appreciate you being here. This has been so inspiring, even if you couldn't hear anything from far back. His spirit is here. We're so stoked. Everyone who came to the service yesterday or tuned in online, thank you so much. I have my brother and my mom here. I don't know if they want to say anything, but we just wanted to thank you. I'll pass this on now.
I didn't prepare anything for tonight. I spent all that mental energy on what I said at my dad's funeral and various other things. But I do want to thank you again for being here. Like I said, my dad was well loved. It's staggering to see the array of people that my dad's life has touched, from his local students to local music fans to people who came, from, across the state, across the country. We truly love y'all, and, the Gonzalez family lives on. Thank you.
We got the Mad Munchkin about to say something here.
I can project better than all of them. And I was always pretty in the shadows, but I have done a little public speaking, and I am improvising on the fly here. But I want to thank the Kessler. The Kessler is doing this for us. They've supported my husband and my kids for many, many years, as well as other people in the community. We need to always come out and support the Kessler and every other local thing, including your place of business. Anyway, I want to thank all of you, all my friends, all my kids and husband's friends that I probably don't even know, and coworkers that he had, all the students, all those students that were up here. I love all those students. They were so sweet. And his North Dallas and his Spence students, and even, I don't know if there's anybody from Woodrow, but who knows. Oh, there you go. Yay. Anyway, thank you all for all you've done. The family has done a lot for us. We appreciate it. I knew that my husband was probably not going to last much longer. I probably knew that more than anybody. And in fact, the day before he died, I was thinking, he's not going to make it through 2022 because he had declined a lot. But even in his last day, we were planning to go to La Calle Doce after they got in from Europe. But it didn't happen. But his last post was, war, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. So I think that, yeah. Say it again. I'm not going to sing. I'll vacate the place. Am I going on too long? Okay. But thank you all of you. I mean, what all of you have said, I mean, it means a lot. And we appreciate it. And to my fellow traveler in life, I love you.
All right, we're gonna get some music on. We got a playlist of my dad's discography, pretty extensively. Want y'all to hang out, get to know each other, and tip your bartender, tip them well, because they did us a real solid by offering us this space. And rest in peace, Dad. I'm gonna love you forever. I'm gonna have you forever in my mind, in my heart, flying above me, always. And he loves y'all too. Bye.
Hey, you guys, just a heads up real quick. I got an extra iPhone here that somebody left, so check and see if you got your phone.